Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy Graham here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Sports Call is brought to you by Auburn Urgent Care. Auburn Urgent Care offers convenient solutions for your health care and occupational medicine needs, including workman's compensation injury care and certified DOT medical examinations. With locations on South College and in Tigertown, visit them online at auburnurgentcare.com. We'll pick up your phone calls in the next segment, but right now we're going to welcome in a good friend of the program, Barrett Sallee, lead writer for the Auburn Tigers at the Bleacher Report. Hey, Barrett, how's it going today?
Good, guys. What's going on?
We're doing really well. Let's just talk a little bit about some national things going on. Obviously, Braxton Miller goes down for the season, kind of a devastating injury for Ohio State. A lot of people look at their schedule and say that they still have an opportunity to make the college football playoff because the weakness of the Big Ten, and they think that, Ohio State can really pick up the pieces. What do you say?
Well, I didn't really have them in the college football playoff to begin with. I thought Michigan State would win the Big Ten, but I didn't even have Michigan State making the playoff. I think the Big Ten would be on the outside looking in just because I think the power from around the nation and in different areas, I think will trump what the Big Ten has to offer, especially now that Ohio State isn't as daunting of a task on everybody else's schedule. I think UCLA is a one-loss team that's going to win the Pac-12 and get in. I think Florida State's going to be either undefeated or have a loss but still win the ACC and get in. And then you're going to have Oklahoma from the Big 12 undefeated as well. So I didn't have Ohio State, winning the Big Ten anyway, and don't have Michigan State getting in to the college football playoff just because I don't think there'll be enough spots. Because I think for everywhere else around the country, teams from tougher conferences will have better resumes and be better on paper and on the field. So, it definitely shakes things up a little bit. I think the biggest thing it does is sort of remove one contender from, a potential SEC team or a Pac-12 team getting that second team in the playoff because you won't have to deal with Ohio State being one of two powers in the Big Ten along with Michigan State.
Well, Barrett, let me ask you a question. Do you have now or have you ever had a vote in the AP poll?
I do not have a vote in the AP poll now, and I never have. Okay.
Well, I was just I always am curious when they come out with preseason poll like this, what the criteria is. Is it supposed to be, these are the best teams in order, top 1 through 25, that we see coming into the season, or is this who we think is going, what it's going to be like at the end of the season? Because the talk about Auburn, being ranked 6th as opposed to maybe even 3rd ahead of, say, an Ohio State or an Oklahoma or an Oregon, is that their schedule is so tough that we don't believe that they're going to be there at the end. And I just wondered, as curious, maybe you might know, you might be able to enlighten me. Is that, is the initial preseason poll that comes out who they think that's how it's going to end up, or are these the best teams that they believe coming into the season?
Well, there is no specific criteria, and I think it's up to the voter. And I vote in our poll, and I always vote just based on where I think they are right now, not where I think they're going to end up. That way, you have more flexibility, you have more, room to sort of move teams up and down based on how they play and how they look each week. So I always vote that way. I know other people do the complete opposite. I know Tim Brando always releases his poll based on how he thinks they'll finish. I know Phil Steele, everything he does in his magazine is based on how they think, he thinks teams will finish. That's why one year he had Duron Carter as an all-SEC wide receiver, and he never played it down. So, I think that's, it sort of depends on the beholder, especially in these polls. You don't have a set criteria, but every time I, pick all SEC teams or ranked teams, I always do it based on where I think they are right now, and then adjust accordingly as the season goes on.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Alabama. They are in the midst of a quarterback battle there in Tuscaloosa. Jacob Coker and Blake Sims. You hear different things coming out of practice. Supposedly, Jacob Coker did not look very well at all in the scrimmage that they had over the weekend. Is a lot of people obviously Alabama is ranked number 2 in the AP poll. A lot of people think that it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. All they have to do is hand it off. I'm not sure that's quite true. How do you fall on this issue?
Well, I don't think it matters in the sense that I don't think it's as pressing of an issue as, say, a quarterback battle in Baton Rouge right now, because there are so many pieces at Alabama for whoever wins that job to rely on. Whoever wins that job, he doesn't have to make mistakes. That's the biggest thing, is don't make mistakes. And, if these quarterbacks, both Blake Sims and Jacob Coker, are both up and down, then I think that's really, troubling and concerning, because, Blake Sims is a guy who, has had, 4 years to get it. Jacob Coker came in with all this hype, although I think a lot of it was artificial. I think, Alabama, I think, is going to be okay if their quarterback is just a caretaker or a game manager. If Jacob Coker lives up to this hype and is a superstar, then great, so be it. Or if Blake Sims is a superstar, then great, so be it. But they can get by and be a successful football team and win, championships with a caretaker at quarterback. I think the struggle right now is finding a caretaker, and that's a huge problem, because the last thing Alabama needs is a quarterback making mistakes, because, you look back at, say what you will about A.J. McCarron. I thought he was a pretty good quarterback, but he was an excellent game manager. Whether that's a bad label or not, he was an excellent game manager, and that's an important trait. And it seems like they haven't found one to sort of pick up that slack, and that's troubling for sure.
Well, the Auburn Tigers they have a quarterback issue of their own. Obviously, Nick Marshall announced will not be the starter in Game 1. There has not been a starter named, but I think pretty much we can all guess that it will be Jeremy Johnson. He highly touted coming out of Carver High School here in Alabama. He has all the physical tools. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Do you think the reluctance to go ahead and name him has anything to do with maybe his performance in the fall camp, or do you think maybe Gus Malzahn is just playing head games with Brett Bielema?
I mean, I think it's just Gus Malzahn just not – I don't think he's playing head games. I think he's just – I don't think he wants Jeremy Johnson to be complacent. I think he wants him to continue to work. So I think if he's playing head games with anybody, I think it's with Jeremy Johnson to make sure that he gets his mind right and prepares like the starter or prepare like he's battling for a job right now, and then he can go into game week next week and prepare as the starting quarterback like he did last year when he filled in for Dick Marshall. So I think the reluctance is the fact that he still wants to finish off the quote-unquote camp portion of August, with Jeremy Johnson still, having, a fire underneath him, and then go into next week, let them know the plan and then execute that plan accordingly. Both of those players are going to, operate as if they are starting quarterbacks, because Nick Marshall, I don't think he's going to be out for too long. But Jeremy Johnson, assuming he's the guy, and I think everyone assumes he will be, it's a great opportunity for him to prepare for a big game as a starting quarterback. He didn't get to do that last year. He prepared to be the starter, but it wasn't a huge game. Now he gets to prepare for a pretty big game against an SEC team, and that's experience that he can use down the road.
We've got Barrett Sallee here with the lead writer for Auburn at the Bleacher Report. One final question for you. Auburn is preparing now to put the game plan in to take on Arkansas on August 30th at Jordan-Hare Stadium, 3 p.m. On the SEC Network. What do you think is the biggest concern that this Arkansas team presents for Auburn in Game 1?
Well, I think their running game is pretty stout. Last year Alex Collins over 1,000 yards as a freshman, Jonathan Williams with 900, sort of in 1B duties in an offense that was woefully one-dimensional. That they can run the football, and Auburn I think has to focus on stopping the run. And if they can do that, then and force Brandon Allen to beat them, then that's what they have to do. Arkansas, Brett Bielema in particular, they pound rock, and it's going to be a tough test for Auburn and its defensive line and its linebackers to sort of pick up where they left off. That national championship game last year, the story was the front seven or front six, I guess in Auburn's case, because the defensive line played well, the linebackers were fantastic. And that's something that they can build off of, but all of that can be eradicated if they struggle with stopping the run against Arkansas. I don't think they will, but they certainly have. That's the biggest challenge. Arkansas, I don't think presents a challenge anywhere else because, that's still a woefully undermanned roster.
Barrett Sallee, lead writer for Auburn at the Bleacher Report. Anything you want to plug at the Bleacher Report right now?
Well, SEC West predictions are coming out actually momentarily, and then SEC East tomorrow, and then preview videos to get us through the summer are getting posted later in the week, and then next week, starting Monday, we'll have preview videos for each of the Week 1 games, which we're recording tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Barrett Sallee, we can't thank you enough for joining us here on Sports Call this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.